Okay, hello. Good morning to all of you, and welcome to this workshop that deals with the role of cultural and natural heritage in addressing polycrisis and urban recovery. As you will see during the presentation, so this is a very complex issue, so though we don't pretend to explore all the possible facets of this issue, but we would like to share with you some work that our panelists have done in the past years, both in terms of methodological exploration, trying to define ways in which polycrisis can be addressed through natural and cultural heritage, and some case studies that we think are relevant to understand the complexity of this issue. We have here three colleagues from different parts of the world that will address this issue. My name is Francesco Banderin. I'm one of the founder members of Heritopolis, which is the organization that is sponsoring this initiative. And I'm also the former Assistant Director General for Culture of UNESCO. We have with us one nice lady here, Rana Amirta Maseb, who is an architect and planner. She's very active, living in New York, and she's a specialist of cultural policies. And she's been, for many years, a World Bank officer specialized in urban affairs. Giovanni Fontana Antonelli from Italy, he's an architect planner, also for many years with UNESCO, and now as a professional in many parts of the world, and also a member of the NGO Our World Heritage, which is an NGO we created a few years ago to open up a discussion on the present and future of heritage. And last but not least, Sami Alabad, who was the former Minister of Public Affairs of the State of Palestine, and also Deputy Minister of Planning, and at the moment head of the Palestine Housing Council. We will have very short presentations, so we don't have much time. We will leave a little bit of time at the end to present and discuss with you a work that Heritopolis Society has promoted and developed in the past few months, which has to do with the situation and future of Gaza. We understand that this is not an easy task, and we would like, first of all, to express our thanks for those who have contributed to this work, and also say that it is entirely under our responsibility, and that is not nothing has to be attributed to the organization that is hosting us, Uninhabited. But at the same time, we are sure that we are discussing an issue that is at the core of this very World Urban Forum. And by the way, Sami will be part of this forum that will take place on Friday, as requested by the Executive Board of Uninhabited on the situation of Gaza. As you will see, we will present to you what we have come up in terms of creating a vision of hope for Gaza. I understand that this might be seen as a utopian and perhaps even incongruous with respect to the current situation. But at the same time, we also think that it is important, while the situation is still in this horrific state, to look at the future of this region and try to define a possible path towards peace, reconciliation, and well-being. So, without further ado, I would like to invite Rana. Rana, you want to speak from there or from here, as you like, to present to us her reflection and work on how to address disasters and post-conflict situations with heritage and culture. Rana, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me well? Okay. Do I have any control over the slides? Okay, so I think you now all know our names, but these are our names. We're part of a huge group, actually, so there's only 4 of us here, including David, who's sitting here, and Eric. But we have some other people around and some people who are in the Middle East and in other parts of the world. Oops. Okay, so I wanted to start my talk here. How many of you know about this book, Persepolis? Okay, so I'm saying this because I am from Iran, and we're going to talk a lot about these very dry frameworks and methodologies and, you know, big words and actionable items and all of that. But I wanted you to know that this is very personal to me. This is my childhood, basically putting a lot of masking tape on the windows and putting like very thick windows. I can't remember a time when I was a child and there wasn't a war. So these are the scenes that I grew up with. It was very normal for me to be in these scenes. Okay, so this is also from that book, but this is the process that you see. Like, we would hear an alarm, run down the stairs, wait in the basement for the bombings and missiles to be done, and then afterwards, we would run to the telephones to call everyone that we knew to make sure that they were alive. This was my childhood, so that's one of the reasons I'm working on this topic. But what brings us to this whole concept of like culture in disaster risk management is this. So this slide, I think it shows really well what is going on. So we basically coped with the whole war and bombs and devastation by dancing and singing, and even grandma was dancing. This is from the book. So this is how we dealt with this whole devastation all my childhood. So there were bombs, you would run to the basement, you come back, and then you'll dance. This was the process. So in spite of all dangers, the parties went on. Without them, it would be psychologically unbearable, some said. Without parties, we might as well just bury ourselves now. Added the others. My uncle invited us to his house to celebrate the birth of my cousin. Everyone was there, even grandma was dancing. So this is just like a snapshot of what's happening. I just picked these 3 randomly because the conflicts and disasters, they keep coming at us. And these 3 were specifically in places with very significant cultural resources. And they keep coming to us. So what do you do after? Sorry, there is a lag because I have to wait for the translation to be done. Okay, so culture is the X factor for building back better. A city cannot be considerably full resilient if it does not integrate its cultural heritage components within its urban and risk management plans. Culture is about people. It means identity and shared values. It enhances social cohesion and integrity. Culture has a particular relevance in disaster situations and crisis. But despite all of this, we still look at culture as a luxury in many, many contexts. We always think that the housing has to come first, and infrastructure has to come first, and water sanitation has to come first, and then there will be role for culture. But the idea is to put back culture as like the center for disaster risk management. Okay, so these are just some, there are so many of these frameworks that we know about, but there are just these like 3 major milestones in the disaster risk management, and most of these don't actually talk about fragility and conflict. Most of these are for disasters, so they don't really talk about what do you do in uncertain times. So in 1994, there was a United Nations World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. 2005 was the Hugo framework. And 2015 is the very famous Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. But the key milestone came in 2017. So I was invited to participate in this report that we call CURE Framework. It was a product of UNESCO and the World Bank. It took us a long time to write it. There were so many authors, tens of authors. Francesco was very heavily involved. So was my former manager at the World Bank. At the time, I thought we were just writing another report, but since then, I've used the concepts in this report so many times in sort of thinking about how to rebuild during conflicts or after conflicts. And I want to tell you that there are a lot of these frameworks that we kind of considered in the CURE framework. One of them is called the Post-Disaster Needs Assessment, or PDNA. The other one is PCNA, Post-Conflict Needs Assessment. And they all have methods to measure destruction, especially like economic destruction. And most of these are like about 6 to 8 weeks after the disaster. You go in, you do the rapid assessment, you come out, and you basically start building based on your first initial assessment. So we think about all of these, we talk about all of these in the CURE framework, but the difference is we want to put culture at the center of recovery. So the Build Back Better is something that has been introduced in the past, like maybe decade, and it's the concept that the use of the recovery, rehabilitation, reconstruction phases after disaster is to increase the resilience of nations and communities through integrating disaster risk reduction measures into restoration of physical infrastructure and societal systems, and into the revitalization of livelihoods, economies, and environment. So this is something that we think about when we work on the CURE framework, because it's about building back better, and it's about bringing culture at the heart of it. So the integration of culture in DRM process, it requires the consideration of all relevant aspects of the specific site and related community, tangible and intangible. So this is the huge breakthrough that the community of DRM practitioners have achieved. Before, we were only thinking about tangible heritage, mainly buildings and cultural heritage. But now we're thinking about intangible heritage. Using culture and cultural initiatives around heritage sites, connecting intangible and tangible culture helps build social cohesion by increasing opportunities for better engagement, including enjoyment and learning, as well as behavior change. So with all of that, I have to say that the CURE framework that you can find easily online has 3 papers that are attached to it, and I really highly recommend you reading these 3 papers. And one of these papers is about fragility and conflict, and how to build back better during a fragility conflict situation like we have right now in Gaza. Okay, so this is like a checklist for practitioners. Identify local sources of cultural expertise and historical information and tangible and intangible heritage to be used as a sounding board to protect cultural assets and for project design teams whenever prevention or response focused. So basically, a lot of the teams that we send in the field are not really cultural heritage specialists. So how do we deal with this? How do you make sure that they know about the cultural heritage and include it? So number 2 is to establish a roster of international expertise in addition to your local expertise. Number 3 is to determine the extent of information assets that can be called upon when needed, including a list of heritage sites, assets of the country, inventory of any intangible cultural heritage, maps and analysis of the predicted incidents and or actual impact of violence or displacement. So a lot of this might seem a lot when you are trying to build this information database, but nowadays with the use of AI or all these computer programs, it's a lot easier to build these, what I call the cultural asset maps, For example, in one of the projects recently, we used a program that uses AI to identify patterns in language. So we basically recorded all of our discussions, and then this program sort of identified the trends in all the discussions. So you do need to interview everyone in the community, integrate, but you also have all these tools, and then you can build a very specific cultural asset map. Identify the most salient culture assets, practices for consideration and incorporation in high priority actions for either prevention or reconstruction interventions. Iconic monuments, heritage buildings, cultural practices, damaged assets or prohibited practices whose repair and revitalization would support the building back better. So again, I want to emphasize that these cultural assets, they don't necessarily have to be a building. In a recent project that we worked on, this cultural asset was a tree. It was a tree that was very important to the community, and everybody, just met there, and there were weddings at that tree. So it's important to know that the cultural heritage is not necessarily just the buildings. Communication protocols, illustrative campaigns are very important. Developing templates for estimating the costs of different types of cultural interventions is important, including, I need to go next. I see that Francesco is looking at me, so I need to rush. Include mechanisms to monitor the political economy of proposed culturally oriented investments. And again, information about this is all online, so I'm just basically telling you the titles, and the methodology is all out there. So this is one of the case studies that we had in Nicosia, Cyprus. And Nicosia is a divided city. Basically, half of the city is under the Cypriots, and another half of the city is under the northern Cyprus. So there's actually a wall in the middle of the city, and you go from one part to another. And it's like a very bitter conflict. It's one of those conflicts where neighbors turned back on each other, and it's been very bitter. So they actually came up with a comprehensive plan for Nicosia as a whole, which was very interesting. I think it's available online, and I highly recommend you looking at it, because it's a divided city, but there's one plan for it. So the impacts of it was they established their social networks, preservation of tentative linkages between communities, rehabilitation of heritage buildings. They brought families and businesses back into neighborhoods that were devastated and abandoned, and rehabilitation of historic buildings along the Lidra Street, which is like the main street in Nicosia. So Timbuktu, Mali is another one. Unfortunately, the conflict still continues, but a lot of the religious and historic sites and manuscripts were destructed. The actions were to engage communities in the restoration of tangible and intangible heritage to foster social cohesion, prioritize the role of local communities in resolving the conflict, and sustainable safeguarding, restoration of cultural spaces, and cataloging and digitizing these spaces, and capacity building, training cultural heritage professionals, awareness raising activities along local communities. So the impacts were they preserved all the sites that were destroyed, establishment of multi-stakeholder, multi-level partnership to promote heritage conservation, and development of a community-centered approach which takes into consideration the local population and tradition. I'm gonna skip the last case study, but you can look it up online, because I know I'm running over. So, sorry.
Thank you, Rana, and sorry to push you, but this is so interesting. But I really recommend that you download the CURE framework from the website, because it is, a very, very important document and very useful, and a rare case of cooperation between World Bank and UNESCO. Now, without further ado, I'd like to call upon Giovanni. You can stay there if you want, or as you like, as you prefer, come to the podium. Come to the podium, whatever. And Giovanni will present to us some cases of recent destruction and how they were addressed by institutions and also individuals. Please.
Sorry.
No, this is not yours. This is not yours.
No.
You see?
Maybe I can scroll here.
That's Samir, sorry. The presentation by Mr. Fontana was the
It's
one that
just
was given to you last, so it's not this one, okay?
It's in the same slide show. Well, in the
But you
meantime,
can start in the meantime.
Yeah, I'm starting. Now, after the presentation of Rana, we are going to dive into one case study in particular, which is Mosul. As you know, it was a city heavily damaged and even destroyed, partially destroyed in 2017 in the attempt to liberate the city from ISIS or Daesh. The magnitude of the destruction, especially for the old city, I will show you a slide later on, was very massive, very significant. And although it is not comparable to the situation of Gaza today, which is much more severe, is a reference, a recent reference in the past, less than a decade, that can be used for some inspiration, some examples on how to recover from a very severe crisis like the one of Gaza today. I worked in Mosul for a couple of years, from 2017, right after the liberation of the city, 10th of July 2017, until mid-2019, for almost 2 years. And we went through a number of, now that I don't find it, I think, okay, I can talk about that. I think it's in the same slideshow. It shouldn't change, all right. So we had, actually, as UNESCO, I was working for UNESCO at the time, yes, here we are. It was a joint effort, UN Habitat UNESCO, which produced in January 2019 this initial planning framework for the reconstruction of Mosul. Imagine that Mosul was not having a master plan since 1976. So even the data, our capacity to recover the data and to recover the documents was very limited. Imagine that ISIS has burned all the municipal archives. There was no more any type of documents, even referring to the property, the ownership of the properties. So it was a sort of tabula rasa from which we had to restart. Now, I need to say that the scale of the destruction of Mosul is many times smaller than the destruction, the magnitude of destruction that we are witnessing in Gaza today. But it is an example, or this is a photograph of the situation of the city, which was massively destroyed. I don't know if these things works or not. Yes. Actually, next slide, please. Yes. Well, this is an exactly summary of our work. This documentation, these documents are available, of course. And here you see, sorry, one slide back. And here you see how we worked. We worked on a 10 priority for the historic town, for the old city of Mosul, and 10 priorities for the city wide, for the entire city. Of course, this was a very initial approach after the crisis. I mean, each of these chapters would require a long presentation, which we don't have time today for, but it just is telling you that it was a reference, it was, I think, a successful approach that enabled the people of Mosul to rebuild their city. Today, Mosul, especially the East Bank, the new city, is a vibrant city full of activities and commercial, cultural activities. And while the historic town is still, until today, a few years later, now almost 6-7 years later, is still not fully recovered, but there are several operations that are going on. Next slide, please. This is the situation of the historic fabric in Mosul. You see, it was very difficult to retrace even the property lines, the plots of each property. In certain areas, there was really a shift along the slope of certain areas of the city, that basically a building was found in another property. Next slide, please. We went through a very detailed approach, tracing the urban fabric, and well, this was a long process of GIS. We mapped the entire city, considering in Mosul the magnitude of the destruction was affecting circa 18,000 buildings within the historic town, out of which circa 6,000 fully destroyed, totally destroyed. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is one portion of the city on which we worked more in detail. Next slide, please. And this is actually a situation across along the Tigris River. So I stop here. Maybe they will have questions later on. I really encourage the debate for a one-to-one discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Giovanni. Appreciate the presentation and the compactness of the presentation. Thanks. Now it's the time of Sami Elabad, as I already presented, to discuss the case of Palestine. Please, you come to the.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this, and I'm very pleased to join this group for looking for hope, for a vision for Gaza. Yesterday, before the ceremony started, we have slides at the beginning saying how important it is for the human beings to have water, electricity, food, and shelter for the human beings. Gaza now, no food, no electricity, no water, and no shelter. What a disaster. I mean, what kind of a world is this? Okay? That's the basic needs for human beings. And this is what is happening in Gaza now. Denied everything. But anyhow, we still have a hope. And that's why I joined this group here, because Gazan will remain there. They're not going anywhere. And they will rebuild their own city and their homes again and again. And the same thing for the West Bank and Gaza, till we establish our state. That's our vision there. In order to have this, we have to think from the beginning how to keep our heritage and environmental and all of that in fact there. So if you look at here, I gave some examples of what is going on over there. Please, the next slide. We're talking about what is the status quo in Gaza right now. Just to put another slide, please. This one. Okay. You can see where the destruction started. Early in 1948 till now, it's going on there. And there's no way to stop this except for having a vision for the future. We need to think seriously about how we're going to come out of this disaster here in order to show the world that there is a need for every human being. There is a home, and there is a water, and there is electricity, and there is a shelter. And there is a heritage for them to contain. And there is everything that is related to their existence that will remain for the future. We are in the Palestinian Housing Council. We start to think about what can we do now and how to go further for the future. We have many steps that we can start it already now by asking people to build their own home, their own homes, individuals, to start whatever rehabilitation can be done, they can do it now. not to wait for the end of the war and not to wait for reconstruction to gather the whole world in order to create some method of reconstruction. I don't know how long it will take before they started, how long it will take for the implementation of that. We want people to start right now under these circumstances to have whatever availability they have to build their own homes, and to remain there because we don't want anybody to leave the strip of the Gaza Strip. So we started for 1923 a new vision. By the way, we have a vision for Gaza for 2050, and it was done by international consortium, and so the plan is there. Unfortunately, it was very difficult for these days to start the implementation of that. And we did the same regional planning for spatial and development planning for the West Bank as well for the 2050, which means 2050, which means that we as a Palestinians, we have hope that we will continue in order to gain our freedom, our dignity, and a better future for our children and grandchildren. We have this in mind and we will not leave it. This is our hope and we will continue doing this for the future. We, the Palestinians, we have experience all over the world, especially in the Gulf states and all over the world, that we start building there, and our touches are still remain there, and nobody can deny that, which means that we can do it at home if we have the right for our freedom and our dignity and to have our own state to look for a better future for our children and grandchildren. Which means we have to look about the heritage, we have to look about the culture, we have to look about the environmental, because all of this is very important for the state to be established in the right way and to continue. And that's the only way that we can get peace done in the Middle East as a whole. Otherwise, things would remain the same for more and more incursion and more destruction for this. I was so pleased and so happy to be part of this group here that was thinking more for the future, more to include all kind of issues that related to the human being, for shelter, for culture, for heritage, for water, for electricity, and for a better life for all the people. And we have a group of people who are experts all over the world that are joining together in order to make this happen. And we hope that we will have the support of all of you here, because what is happening is, unfortunately, is not acceptable for any human being. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's a phone here. I don't know. Thank you very much, Sami. I think you opened up a very important issue, which we would like to explore a little further now. I mentioned earlier that we have developed within the Heritopolis Society a project. All the people on the podium have been part of the project, and many people also that are sitting with us on Gaza. Heritopolis is an NGO. It's not an international bank or anything. So we can, somehow, it's an NGO formed by researchers, professionals, policymakers from different parts of the world. It was originated about 3 years ago, and with the scope of looking at the role that culture and heritage can play in the development of metropolitan areas. This is something that follows the Habitat 3 conference in 2016, where we saw very clearly that the world in the 21st century was largely dominated by metropolitan development. So we thought that heritage could be a very important tool to improve the quality of metropolitan development, perhaps sometimes even guide it, and at the same time innovate in the field of heritage and culture. This NGO has launched a project a few months ago when we saw the level of destruction of Gaza, in order to somehow use the capacities and the skills of this group of people from all over the world to help, of course, the future of Gaza. And if you can show me the pictures, if you can show the pictures, it will be appreciated. Maybe Rana, yeah. So we have launched this project called A Vision of Hope. This project is essentially trying to look at the future of Gaza. I know that, as I said earlier, this might seem incongruous because still the bombs are falling on Gaza. At the same time, if we don't start looking at a possible future, we will not be able to guide the reconstruction and recovery of this region in the short term, when hopefully the war will end and we will have to look at this immense devastation that has hit the people of Gaza in ways that perhaps are unheard and unseen in modern times. So future of Gaza and Vision of Hope essentially is a projection. Of course, we look at the essential needs of reconstruction, but we try also to look at the future, to see how Gaza could be reconstructed in the future and what would be its role in the region and in the world. With one key concern: to reconnect. Gaza has to be reconnected to its region and the world, to do exactly the opposite of what was done before. Again, you can see utopian, you can see it's naive and so on, but unless we achieve this reconnection, there will be no hope for Gaza. It will be again another open-air jail, as it's been in the past decades. So the key issue is reconnection. We started from heritage. Anthedon is the Greek name of the harbor of Gaza, a harbor that was a major hub of the Mediterranean trade for over a millennium. Gaza was, for a millennium, the key point of exchange between Egypt and the Levant, between the Arabian Peninsula and the Greco-Roman world. And Anthedon is the Greek name of the harbor of Gaza, which is still there, although it has been damaged recently. So this is called Project Anthedon, to mark the idea that we want to create a reconnection and a connection between Gaza, the region, and the rest of the world. Now, of course, we look at many facets of the current situation. The first one is, of course, what kind of scenario is waiting. There will be no reconnection of Gaza and no reconciliation if there is no peace and if there is no authority. Therefore, we conceive this project within the two-state solution, which is something that we think is required to provide Gaza and Palestine with the necessary power and authority to develop projects. So, of course, we look at possible scenarios. I'm going very quick now, but we will give you an address at the end of the presentation where you can write, and we will send you the copy of this report. I have a few copies here, but not enough for all of you. So those who don't have a computer are entitled to get a copy. Those who have a computer can ask for a web version. Of course, so we look first of all at the possible scenarios, which can go from the scorched earth present situation to a possible global coalition to establish a state of Palestine. And then we looked at the situation, how to address the multiple crises, the polycrisis that is present in Gaza through the many aspects that this requires. And of course, there is, as you can see, also a reflection of the many things that we have discussed so far, the approach to how to address these dimensions of crisis. We look at the issue of immediate needs, of course, that requires, they are needed to ensure the survival of the population in a very long phase of reconstruction. We look at the need. We look at the economic dimension of Gaza. Gaza was actually relatively equipped, even in that situation before, was relatively equipped in terms of economy. The population of Gaza is very industrious, very active, very capable, and very resilient. So the economy of Gaza, although was, of course, hit by the situation, was always very florid. And we could find again in this population the capacity to reorganize and to get ready for a new economic recovery. We will need, of course, to, this doesn't work, to look at the building back better, what Rana was saying earlier, this approach that requires a rethinking. We don't want to create an identical thing because probably there were many defects, but we can improve the situation both in terms of housing, services, infrastructure, and so on. And then, of course, we have to push for the reconnection. Reconnection is a multidimensional idea. It's not just a gate. We need to have infrastructures that reconnect Gaza to the region and the rest of the world. We need to look at the environmental dimension, which is very important, both on land and sea. We have to look at the economic reconnection. We have to look at the social dimension, and of course the cultural dimension. So each of these dimensions are part of a project. We have tried to explore all of them in this preliminary outcome of this report. For instance, we're looking at the environment, which is an extremely important dimension, separating Gaza from the region. It's impossible if you consider the way the environment is organized. We're of course looking at a new possible spatial order. Can you get me a better one that really works, a new spatial order? Because of course, Gaza is so destroyed that we'll have to rethink its own urban organization and so on, both in terms of housing, public space, and so on, and the connectivity with the rest of the world, with the rest of the region. We will have to address the very difficult issue of what will be the culture and heritage of this population that has been so exposed to major disruption. And of course, heritage has been heavily hit. Very little has survived. So we will have to think about new forms, new ways in which we can rebuild heritage, tangible and intangible, in order to address what is we think is a basic need for recreating identity, recreating cohesion and social cohesion through culture. And also we thought about this other idea. The proposal that is listed here is the creation of a transboundary metropolis. A metropolis that includes areas that are now in the state of Palestine, Israel, and Egypt. Now, you will look at me and say, are you crazy? Yes, we are visionary, so we're trying to see how this can be. But a transboundary metropolis exists. They do exist in many parts of the world. They exist in a region which was hit by two major world conflicts, Europe. You go to Europe, there are many areas that are borders between countries that massacred themselves for decades. And now they are, in fact, integrated through the metropolitan system, like Strasbourg or others, and so on. And, in fact, they are very good examples of that it is possible through the creation of an integrated metropolitan area to even facilitate the process of reconciliation, and certainly to prop what are all the exchanges that are needed for a true and effective reconnection of this area with its region and the rest of the world. We are also working with organizations that are specialized with this, both in Europe and also internationally, because the UN Habitat has its own working group on this issue, and is collaborating with us on trying to define possible models of integration of areas that are today divided, like many examples allow to conceive. But finally, the idea is to connect, creating a new system of integration and exchanges between the different parts of the region. Now, if we look today at the situation, of course, you can only see war, conflict, hatred, something that probably will leave a lot of scars in the coming years and decades. So we don't think that this will be a magic effect of recovery. At the same time, if we don't start looking at this possible future, we will never achieve it, first. And second, having a future in mind can be a very, very important guidance for even current and present decisions that will have to be taken. Redesigning a special order in Gaza will have a major impact on the life of the people. But if we don't have an idea of where this new special order will lead, then we will not be able to define it. Now, one thing I want to say in concluding, all these things is not a technological, technocratic, bureaucratic precipitation or from the top. We are just discussing ideas with our friends in Palestine, in Gaza, many parts of the world. We are discussing ideas, but the solutions for Gaza will come from the bottom, will come from the citizens, will come from they will express their desire, their wishes, their intentions on how to reconstruct Gaza. So there is no technocratic solution here that we are proposing. We are just proposing a methodology and perhaps a vision. So tools that are needed to build a better future. But the future is not built by people outside. We refuse and really strongly reject many ideas that were brought upon recently of making of Gaza a new Dubai or a new something that, as you see perhaps in the press, because that is not only a violation of the rights of the people there, but also an offense to those who are suffering so much at the moment. Now, this report will be done in about 3-4 months. I think we have a date of February 25 to present this full report. So what you have seen essentially is a summary of the chapters. And we have we have proposed a little booklet here. I have a few copies here for those who are really pressing. But for those who don't, I would like to indicate that there is a possibility of getting this booklet via the web. There is an address there. See if I can change the slide. Can you change the slide, please? And I go to the last slide, where people can, if you just write to this address, this web address, you will, you will get it. We will give it to you. We'll send it to you. Also, it will be downloadable in our website, heritopolis.org. Very quickly, I think next week or so, we will make it downloadable. But if you really want it, we will send it to you also in PDF format, so that you can see that there is at least a group that is thinking of it. And of course, we look forward to your advice and suggestions. We don't have the solutions, and nobody has the solutions. I think it has to be a collective effort. I'm sure our friends from Palestine will appreciate, if the world as a whole takes a stake in this very, very complex effort of recovering and reconstructing Gaza after this immense destruction, the worst one that we have seen in our life and in our professions. It will be a challenge for everybody, not just for the Gazans, but for many institutions. Those who will have to operate on the emergency response, and those who will have to work perhaps on building a longer-term future. With Sami, we have discussed a lot about this thing. Of course, the first years of recovery, we don't know what the political situation will be. We don't know what will be the impositions, and the limitations that we will encounter. At the same time, this will certainly be focused on emergency response. We will have to give shelter and food and services to the population, which is, as you know, suffering tremendously at the moment. But at the same time, let's look at the future. Let's build a vision for the future. Let's build a vision that allows to see and to think that in the matter of some years or some 1-2 decades and so on, at least Gaza will be integrated in the region and in the rest of the world. And this will be the condition for peace and reconciliation. Thank you very much. Now, we have a few minutes left. I really would like to ask if you have any questions to us or to the panelists. Sorry? Sorry, yeah, forgot. we have one extra thing, which is a little movie that we have produced. And I'd like to ask our specialist, technical specialist, to put it on, if possible. It's just 2 minutes, so you can, and this somehow concentrates everything that we said and shows what we are intended to do. Please. And the sound. The sound. The sound, please.
The conflict has created in Gaza a severe humanitarian crisis, raising questions about the future. When most initiatives addressing the crisis in Gaza either impose visions based on exploitative urban developments or emphasize strictly needed and urgent actions of humanitarian relief. In both cases, the future of Gaza and the region continues to be disconnected, disintegrating into an unsustainable and conflictual future. A radical change is urgently needed, one that offers a long-term perspective within a two-state solution, enabling Gaza to rebuild, recover and regenerate step by step, while being aware of the complexities of the current reality. Anthedon is a collaborative international initiative that sets a path to reopening, reconnecting and reintegrating Gaza, building it back better, together from bottom-up local neighborhood initiatives, by imagining a network of exchanges, crossing urban, cultural and environmental borders, encouraging reconciliation between peoples, and in the heart of an interconnected region, developed and coordinated as a whole for growth and sustainability in the context of a changing climate. We aim to reconnect people and communities through the rich cultural heritage and cultural itineraries of the entire region, and the development of shared natural resources. By focusing on the social urban fabric of the region and fostering shared interests, while applying an integrated approach that combines economics, heritage, environment, sustainability and infrastructure. A vision of hope for peaceful coexistence can be made a reality.
I hope you appreciated this very short movie that somehow summarizes what we were saying. Now we still have a few minutes. I think I was given 5 minutes more. If there is any question, I think Klaus Peter. I think you need a micro, so come here, or go to the center. Yeah. Klaus Peter, there.
Thank you, Francesco, for this.
You have to. I think you have to open the micro somehow. Yeah. Okay. It's working.
It works. Okay. Thank you, Francesco, for this brilliant report. And I'm Klaus Peter Echter from Germany. And
Closer.
Closer?
Yeah.
I'm Klaus Peter Echter from Germany, and I'm a member of the steering committee of Heritopolis and a member of ICOMOS International, who is the advisor for UNESCO. Congratulations for this initiative and for this document, which I think it's a task that the Security Council of the United Nations should do, but I think it's really informative. And I carefully studied this document, and I was really impressed. And of course, the basis of this initiative is also a political view of two states. That's it. And I think also I only want to stress one point about the metropolis, the transboundary metropolis. And I guess because these are examples of Europe, Of course, in Europe, there are no conflicts like this, but you told us about two initiatives, Metropolis, which are really interesting for us, Nicosia and also Timor Este. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you. Yeah, please, you have to go to the microphone. Please speak close to the microphone, otherwise we have problems in hearing you, but go ahead.
Thank you. I'm an engineering, Hibatullah Yusuf. This is not a question, but I think I have thoughts I want to share with you. First, thank you about the 2 minutes film. It's marvelous. I thought I will not see this in Gaza again. How we could speak about the hope and we can't stop the war there. After we can stop the war, I think it will be no heritage, no people to make something for them. Really, I can't enjoy with this beautiful thought when we can't do anything now. It's a year.
Yes.
It's a year. They kill all the people. The children will not see on their minds anything except the war.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to you. I share your emotion for this because I know you are involved in this thing. But at the same time, we are from outside and watching this thing, and we are all horrified, and we want to do something. So the way we can help our Palestinian partners is to somehow gather information, gather competence, gather skills that will be in the future a resource. At the moment, there is only blood and tears, in Gaza, as we know, and perhaps the worst crisis ever seen in modern times in the field of urban destruction. I cannot recollect anything. You have to go back to World War II and the massive destruction of Hiroshima or Dresden or whatever, to find something similar. So nobody had ever thought that we would have seen that kind of thing. Even the case of Mosul and perhaps Aleppo and many other cities in the Middle East and beyond that have been hit by destruction are not comparable. Once we'll be able to go back to Gaza and try to see the state of affairs, we will be certainly meeting a very, very heavy situation, very difficult, that will require many other resources, many other things, financial, intellectual resources that are not the ones that we have mobilized for this. So any other questions for yes, please go to the microphone. We have to.
Hello. I just want you to clarify for us. You mentioned how you will rebuild Gaza as constructions and infrastructures all out new. But my question regarding to one thing you mentioned, that Gaza will start from the bottom. And the bottom, I do believe, is not in culture of Gaza tribe people, but I think it's a political concept. You have to first settle down the political situation to be able to do this transportations and the logistics and all this plan.
Yeah.
So what actually you are looking for to do in this concept as a political solution?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, which is perhaps more for Sami than me. But certainly the first thing, I believe that the first thing that has to be done once the possibility will allow, the situation will allow, is to reconstruct the social fabric, which was very strong in Gaza. And Gaza was very strongly organized. They had a lot of communities, organizations, and so on, mayors, and so on. This thing, of course, at the moment is heavily damaged. So we have, first of all, to reconstruct, even before thinking of reconstruction, reconstruct the way in which society lives, operates, and decides. But perhaps, Sami, you want to comment on this, please? Go ahead. There is a micro there. You want to come here?
Of course, I understand what you're all saying about the current situation there, and as I said at the beginning, but nothing will hold us as Palestinians not to think for the future. We are in Gaza, and we stay in Gaza, and we're not going anywhere from there. So we have a lot of difficult missions. We know that. We have to build it again. We have to start from now. Of course, we need to end the war. This is a priority. But what we can do, like our president yesterday, he said 3 times the Americans used their veto not to end the war, okay? But the war will be ended, inshallah, soon. And after that, immediately, we'll start to work in Gaza for immediate thing and for the future. And this is a hope in order to link the whole Gaza, the West Bank, Jerusalem as a one state, and from there, how to link it to the region and to the international community. We have this in mind, and I think what they presented here, it's a way of thinking. It's a new approach, a new methodology to think toward how to achieve peace in the future and how to present many of those issues in relation to what's going on now and for the future. It's not a matter that because of the destruction that takes place here, it's unhuman. It's everybody in the world is talking badly about it. But unfortunately, we need to get something done, and we have to think, even for the Gazan, how to start to rebuild their own homes now, immediately now. And they wanted to stay there because that's part of our hope for the future. So we understand this. We understand all the way that people think of the disaster here. But that doesn't mean that we have to stop thinking about the future and our hope. This is what we call, it's a vision of hope for the future. And we hope that we will continue developing this. By the way, it's not only us here. There is a group, professional people, all over the world, by the way. If you think from Portugal down to Italy, France, Switzerland, from all over the community, Colombia, Korea, and even from Korea, we have a group of professional people all over the world, which means that they're all interested in the issue of Gaza and what is going on in Gaza here and what's going on in the Middle East, and hoping to achieve peace through the gathering of professionals to talk together about the hope and about the vision, to present this to the decision makers in the world in order to continue doing the right thing they're supposed to do.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Sami. I think this is a good closing for our session. Thank you for leaving us 10 more minutes. We are now closing this. I would like to distribute some of the booklets if some of you want, and of course it won't be for everybody, but we will try to accommodate all of you. If you don't have it, just write to Erytopolis@erytopolis.org and you will receive it. Thank you very much.